plenty of questions to get through.
Before we move on, thank you.
Yeah.
Before we move on, at the benefit of the comfort break, I managed to get hold of the ticket office and find out why we didn't put the coaches on. And just shows even today we don't get all our judgments right, because the judgment made was that there wouldn't be the demand for a coach. Now, given what I've heard from a number of people at the front, it appears that judgment was wrong. So. Right. Well, my apologies for that. Those who did want to go on a coach, but that was the judgment made. It's okay.
That'll be their own coach, won't it, from the supporters club? Yeah, but it's not one that the club have organised, I don't think, is it? But there is one from Biddulph if anybody wants to jump on it tomorrow on a Hollinshead bus. Okay, so there we go. John just informed me on Friday when he booked on the coach Hollinshead from Biddulph, there was 18 spaces left. So for anybody that might want to go, give the guys up at Knipersley and Biddulph a ring. Right, I'm going to go straight back into it. Tony and perhaps John, I'm going to come to Tony first on this one. Do the board consider that with the absence of a director of football, do we think that we need a director of football? What are you coming in here, John? You're up, you're ready.
I'll come in.
You take that one.
No, as I've explained, yeah, hopefully, we are looking. We've stated how important it is to get recruitment right. We have absolutely acknowledged recruitment hasn't been quite as good as we'd have liked, and we are working to get that right now. We will work with Michael and come up with the right structure and the right team to make sure that we give ourselves the very best chance of getting that right. And bear with us on it.
Thanks, John. Second part of the question, I've got no name on this one, but it's handwritten, it's been handed to. Second part of the question, in light of the club's current performance, why did a director get a pay increase of 155,000? It's addressed to Tony, so... and John's coming straight in here as well.
I'll jump in there. First of all, that's not true. The accounts can say many things. Tony absolutely did not get such a pay increase, and in terms of levels of pay, look, executive pay can be quite an emotive subject. I absolutely understand that there are certain parts of our national media who seem obsessed with my sister's pay. So I know, I realise that can happen. However, look, what I can tell you is, look, Tony's been working with us for a long time. A lot of those years were very, very good. Some of the best years in the club's history. Look, we've had 2 bad years. I share my responsibility for those years. In terms of remuneration, in terms of personnel, we find Tony a good guy to work with. We think he's good at his job, and clearly, all I can tell you about levels of remuneration, whatever Tony's paid, it doesn't stop us investing in either the team or the management team in any way, shape or form.
Thanks, John.
Sorry, I'll pose the question. I've read the question. Yeah. If you don't agree that a director of football would be a good appointment, how are you going to reduce the club's player impairment liability moving forward?
I didn't say what we'd ruled in or out. I said hopefully, and apologies if it wasn't clear, I said we were working with Michael as we speak to work out what the best structure was going forward and who the best personnel are to fit that structure.
Will the player impairment provisions for this season be significant as the last few seasons, as those in the last few seasons have been?
The player impairment provisions will be what they should be.
They will be significant because they're a product of what we paid for the players that we got in the squad, what we paid in the past. So they'll still be significant, but player impairment's an accounting treatment. It's nothing to do with with cash. The cash has been paid or it's about to be paid. So, but if you look at the balance sheet value of the players, the player impairment will be relative to that.
Tony, I know that you love talking about financial fair play, so I've got another one here for you on that there topic. Given the financial fair play rules, is it the case that high-profile, valuable players will have to be sold in the summer to minimise losses that have been potentially caused? That's from Sue.
I think with regard to financial fair play, it's now called profit and sustainability, which is quite amusing, really, but there we are. I'll answer the question in generality. It's actually not helpful for us as a club to speak publicly about our specifics, so we won't do that. What I'll say is that we will do and will continue to do everything that we can, whilst recognising the rules, but also whilst trying to change the rules.
But just to give you an example of how ridiculous the rules are, there's a situation where, and let me just take a hypothetical situation, this isn't to do with us, yeah? You could be a Premier League club that's been relegated, yeah? And you could have bought a player in the Premier League for, say, 20 million. And the written down value in your accounts for that player could be, at the time, say, 16 million. You've just got relegated, yeah? And that player hasn't worked out, yeah? And a bid comes in for that player for 10 million. And you actually can't take... The right thing to do at that stage as a business is sell that player. It hasn't worked out, you know, for whatever reason, hasn't worked out. But you are then giving yourself, for profit and sustainability calculations, you are generating a loss within their calculations, which would maybe mean that you couldn't comply with their rules. So the right bit, it's stopping you make actually sensible business decisions. Obviously, taking to one side that the sensible decision might have not been to sign the player in the first place, but you get what I'm saying.
Thanks, John, for that.
Steve, just hopefully a final point on profit and sustainability.
Oh, I wouldn't bank on it. We've got another 50 down here.
Well, I'll talk as though it is a final point, okay?
I think it might be my final one on profit and sustainability.
And John alluded to it earlier on, but I wanted to say it because I think it's a really important point, that the rules actually sort of encourage us as a club to act in completely the opposite way to the way in which we have acted for a number of years. And that is that we've tried consistently to make football as affordable as we can for as many people as we can. John and the rest of his family have invested in the team consistently year after year, have invested in the stadium, have developed this football club into a Premier League level club. The rules that are in place go against all of that, which not only are they bad for us at the football club, but they're bad for the whole football club. I think they're bad for supporters. You know, supporters, I think, want owners, want John and his family to invest in the team. They want prices to be kept down. They want investment in all aspects of the football club. And so the rules as they currently are bad for fans. And I don't know whether Malcolm's in the room, but I genuinely think it's something that supporters should be looking at these rules as well and saying, why are the football leagues so insistent upon our club and trying to stop them investing in the community, trying to stop them investing in the team, trying to stop them investing in the cost base of the club as well. And it's just, I just put it out there because I think it's an important point for supporters as well.
Thank you. And my final one on profit and sustainability, just to get it in, because it will be one that you can wrap up with. Are you confident, Tony, that we won't face a deduction for next season? That's from Gareth.
Yes.
Thanks, John. Okay, next one. Job done. One for the gaffer. And this is from Janet. Why do you think the quality is so vast between the Premier League referees and the rubbish we have to put up with in the Championship?
That's right, yeah.
Is this? Yeah. And that question's from Michael O'Neill. So
I think I think if you're in the Premier League this season, I'm not sure that would be the opinion based on how VAR's operating at Premier League level at the minute. It seems to be creating more problems than enough. Look, I think at the end of the day, it's no different really. I suppose from players, the best referees want to referee at the best level, and there's a structure there in terms of how they allocate referees. I don't think the referee, personally, I don't think the referees have been that bad in the games that we've been involved in. I genuinely don't. I'm used to, as I say, in international football, you can't really shout at the referee because he can't understand you anyway, so it's a bit of a wasted point. It amuses me really because in international football, if you say anything to the fourth official, they give you one warning and that's it. So on that basis, Paul Cook would be in jail now, basically, on how he speaks to the fourth official from minute 1 to minute 90 of every game. And I don't understand coaches who constantly just shout at the fourth official, because your job as a coach is to analyse the game to help your team. I'm not sure how you're able to do that when you're disputing every throw-in, every foul, every tackle. It just becomes weary, like. So I think you know we get so involved and so with the referee that, you know, it's a difficult job for them. I always, you know, the one thing I always do look at in the referee is like, what's his body shape when he comes onto the pitch. It always gives me a concern if he's not looking the most athletic. But overall, I have to say, other than the decision that went against us at Luton, I think overall we've probably been not too bad.
Good. Just a quick fire one for you from Izzy. What's your preference with players, British or overseas?
Oh, well, my goodness, yeah. It's a difficult one for me to answer at this minute in time. You know, the most exotic player I brought to Northern Ireland was Conor Washington from Peterborough, so it's hardly an overseas player. Yeah. I think that there's two things that drive that. The British market is incredibly inflated, which obviously means that you have to go and look overseas. Overseas comes with a greater level of risk, and so it's a balance of value against risk. I think buying the right players for the right level of football. I think what, as supporters as well, you'll have seen players who have played for Stoke City here in the Premier League and possibly struggle a little bit more in the Championship because of the different type of football it is as well. So that gives you an indication that just, you know, a Premier League player is never necessarily going to excel in the Championship either. So I think it's mainly just about, for me, it's about the right types of player wherever they come from. I think that, you know, whilst I wouldn't say we would go predominantly more British going forward, I think that, you know, the bulk of our team will be driven by that, but it'll also be driven by the market as well. And I think that, you know, the key is to find value, to find players that can come into your squad, that can add value to your squad as well. So you're getting them at the right time. You know, there's quite a lot. There's good value, I think, in Scotland for the moment for players as well, because players are relatively cheap. Their wages are cheap. And that makes them that little bit more attractive as well. So I think it's a combination of all those things. I just think you have to get the balance right. And again, that, you know, if you bring overseas players into your club, you want them to see it as a real opportunity and that they stay at your club. You don't sort of want them sort of looking at the exit door after 6 months, and that's something that we obviously have to safeguard against as well.
Thank you very much. Don't stand a chance with Billy, though, do they?
Yeah. I can't understand Billy most of the time. So, of course it is. But, you know, there's plenty of top players who come into the Premier League who haven't been in the Premier League for 4 or 5 years, are still doing their post-match interview and match of the day with a translator. So I think it's about the quality of the player and how he adapts. We also have a number of foreign coaches in the game as well. So I think that's less prevalent. And for me, football, you can get your message across. Ideally, the most important thing is that you get a player that comes in and settles into the lifestyle side of things as much as anything else. And that's a big factor in terms of, obviously, language. But they settle in the country and they want to be here and they want to be part of English football, because English football's tough. I didn't realise the Championship was as tough as it is until I've become involved in it. So from that aspect, I think you need players, regardless of what their language capability is they're the right character as well.
Thank you. This is a statement that we've had from Alan. It's he wants to put on record a big thank you to Joe Allen and Jack Butland for staying with us during the bad times. It's appreciated, and get back soon, Joe. So I think we'll thank you for that, Alan. Mr. Coates, one for you. About the organisation structure of the club, at the majority of companies, the CEO reports to the board of directors and is accountable to the board of directors. What were your thoughts or benefits to making the CEO a member of the board here at Stoke?
I think CEOs are often members of the board, so I wouldn't see that as particularly unusual. At the end of the day, it's a private company. In a group of private companies, we're very hands-on owners. The system works, in our eyes. Clearly, results haven't been how we wanted them to be, but I don't think it makes a particular difference whether the CEO is a director or not a director.
Thank you, John. Dave from Block 22. Hopefully he's here in the WOD with us tonight, not sitting in Block 22. It'd be a bit cold on his own out there. We've gone around the houses with this and we've sort of answered it, but he wants to let us know that when Lou was manager here, we had a chairman, your dad, John. We had a secretary, Mike Potts, and a manager in Lou. Does football really need any more than that to bring success?
I think football's very different now than it was in Lou's era. But fundamentally, some of the fundamentals, as I think we said at the start, don't change. Get your manager right, get your recruitment right, and then you give yourself a hell of a chance.
Thank you.
That's the same.
I'll come to you, Tony, for this one. It's a quick fire one. It's about facilities here at the football club, hospitality. Any plans for a fan park or improvements with Delilah's Bar? That's from Lloyd.
Take the first part of it. No, there's no plans for a fan park. The weather's against us. Some clubs have invested in a fan park. Some have invested a lot. Many have invested significant amounts and just not got the demand for it. So we've got no plans at the current time for a fan park. With regard to Delilah's, there may well be improvements. We're just going through the capital round at the moment to decide on next year, so there may well be.
Thank you. Again, for the two of you, really. The FA and other clubs have introduced Hall of Fame for their nominated players. Do the board have any plans to open up a Stoke City Hall of Fame?
Not at this moment, no.
Okay. At this moment, I think was the answer. I think you get your supporters' council on it, and who knows? Are there plans to change the club badge to better represent the local identity? That's from Simon. John, do you want to take that one? Keeping the badge, are we?
At the moment, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we've had 3 badges that I remember. I won't go into which one's my favourite, but it's possibly one of the other ones. But that's by the by.
That's personal preference, John.
Personal preference. The focus at the moment is on getting the football right.
Gaffer, what do you think of the song we sing about you regarding whiskey and Guinness? We've saved the best till last.
I had a great gag about this, and you've ruined it.
Oh, well, you should have briefed me beforehand. So, do you? Obviously, you got a little smile on your face there, and you know, Stoke fans can be the most cruel and the most kind and the funniest at times. How do you like your song?
Well, I was
Moving on.
no, I was hoping they would be like singing about my tactical genius or my amazing motivational skills or something of that nature. We are sort of stereotyping Irishmen there as a little bit as well, which is a little bit of a concern. I've never drank whiskey in my life. I only drink Guinness in Belfast. And the song probably wouldn't work if you said, oh, he likes a nice glass of Sauvignon Blanc or something like that. I wouldn't really have the same ring to it.
I don't think the boothing end are up for a Sauvignon Blanc, to be honest.
And in all honesty, yeah. I'm not big really on supporters singing about me full stop. I'd much rather they sing about the team, to be honest. So, but yeah, look, it's been very nice. It seems to have caught on. Hopefully it'll die out. And as we progress.
You should really be happy, because to get your own song so early on, I mean, there's lots of managers that have been that never ended up with a song, and you've nailed it first in there, and you've got your own. And I think you're going to struggle to stop them singing it.
Yeah, there is a common thing that I have noticed that it tends to die out when we're behind, actually. So it does, yeah. Maybe that's the secret. I didn't hear it at Derby, for example.
Brilliant. Right, I'm going to come to Tony or John, whoever puts the mic up first on this. What factors do you attribute to the upturn in form since... sorry, this is for you, Gaffer. What factors do you attribute to the upturn in form since you took over from Nathan Jones? That's from Ryan.
Listen, I don't want to answer this because... Well, I don't want to answer this in a way, sorry, that would appear to be critical of previous managers in any shape. What we did quite clearly was we came in with we looked at the squad of players that was here at the club. We felt we could streamline it somewhat, and we picked a system that we believed suited the players best of all. And then we were consistent with selection of the team. And sometimes you have to pick players consistently even when they're not at their best. You can't get into that situation where you're in one game, you're out the next, you're in another game, you're out, and you have to stick with players. You have to believe with your best team. I know pretty much what my best team is. I knew it pretty much after about 3-4 weeks in the building, and then sticking with that. Now the job now is to improve the team, whether that's with the existing players or with bringing players in. But that's all we've done, and we've trained the team consistently as well in a way that leads to obviously how we want the team to play, and that's what we've tried to do. It's just been consistency of selection, and I think consistency in terms of what we've tried to do in the training pitch, and obviously what we've done with the system of play as well.
Superb. And we're seeing that consistency, aren't we? We're seeing, as Stoke fans that had to sit through some of the football, perhaps, shall we say, that we were enduring before. I think it's plain to see that system is moving in the right direction. So thank you for that. Tony, quick one. Is Benik Afobe a done deal to Bristol City, or can he be recalled?
No, he's not a done deal. Obviously picked up his injury, which was a great shame for him. Shame for Bristol City, shame for Stoke City as well. But no, it's not a done deal. Obviously, Benik is back in training, and the loan to Bristol City is still in place. So, if he gets back fit and he gets back match fit, then he's an option for them, not for us. But the loan expires at the end of June, and then as things stand at the moment, he returns to us.
Thank you, Michael. One for you, Tom Edwards. He's obviously not getting the game time that he perhaps had previously. People want to know what's going on with Tom Edwards.
Tom's he's very much part of the squad. He basically obviously trains with the first team squad every day. And I played him, I think, in the opening 2 games. Possibly I played him in the opening 2 games, Barnsley and, if memory serves me right, Wigan. And I just felt Tom looked at a little bit, particularly here when we played Reading at home, that his confidence was very short. He looked a a little bit anxious, you know, at the time. I remember he seemed to suffer a little bit, and he's a young player with and that's sometimes you have to take young players out of the team to give them a chance rather than suffer through that. It's also a combination of, I think, Tommy Smith coming in and playing well as well. We have obviously spent quite a bit of money on Tommy in the close season at right back, and so it's variable then for the likes of a fullback, how often I'll put a fullback on the bench, for example, and what the makeup of the bench is. So, you know, Tom's very much in the plans. He's got to do more. I think he's going to have to do more to push his way into the team. But as I say, he's a young player with a lot of potential. But the onus is on Tom to fulfil that potential.
Thank you. John, one for you. Was the appointment of Paul Lambert the most ambitious option we had? Retrospectively, it seems that it was more about funds.
It wasn't about funds.
The first bit, it was the ambition was there with Paul when we appointed him.
The ambition's always been there. I absolutely hold hands up when things go wrong, but never has anything been because of lack of ambition. It's, you know, we've just got certain things wrong.
Okay. Tony, this is a facilities one. I'm probably going to be just giving you the heads up. And hot water and washing facilities in the Boothen end. There's not hot water in some of the toilets and perhaps not being refilled with soap and paper towels towards the end of the game. Is that something we can pick up with our facilities team here at the stadium?
I think it's something they're already aware of, because it was reported back on Monday morning. On Monday morning, we always meet and go through the previous weekend's game. You'll all know in the room that there's shortages already of certain things, but no, we want to make sure that there's the appropriate hand washing equipment and material all around the ground. So they're doing what they can.
Thank you. I'll stay with you, Tony, for this one. Could we have got a fee for Imbula? And there's your answer, ladies and gentlemen.
We were very happy with the deal that we did on Imbula in January.
And the Sentinel can report that, Martin. We've got one here from Aid, and one again for Tony and John as opposed to the manager. What happened to the link up with Orlando City? Is that something that we're still pursuing?
No, it's not. The relationships with other clubs depend on what the two clubs' needs are at a particular point in time, but also it depends upon the characters, the individuals who are at the clubs as well. And the ownership at Orlando changed, and perhaps even more significantly, the management at Orlando changed as well. And so that the relationship that we had with them wasn't a bad one by any stretch, but it just wasn't one that could work in the way that the partnership was originally set up.
Thank you. John and Tony again, this is from Jack C. Is next season do or die, considering it's the last season of our parachute payments?
Do or die.
Do or die to get up, I would imagine. Jack, do you want to elaborate on that? Is he anywhere? He's there.
Yeah, I mean, look, we are continuing to support the club in however we're able to do it. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Got two more, and then we're going to come to the floor, but we're only going to come to the floor if there's questions, okay? So we'll do that very shortly and just do 5 minutes on the floor. Final two that I've got here then. This is from Ted. Tony and John, like a lot of Stokies, we follow our team home and away every game, and they do. Under 18s, under 23s, women's, men's first team. Honestly, they would pay to come and watch the grass grow here if we let them, Ted and Julie. Will you be as devastated as everybody else in the room if the unthinkable happens and we drop out of the Championship?
Yes. Because
there is a reason I asked that. I saw Michael after QPR. He was devastated. I've seen you, Tony. I've seen Jonathan away from home, and I find it hard to accept that you laugh and joke after we've been beaten.
Well, Ted, all I can say to you is that every single bad result hurts, and it hurts for a long time. Now, whether or not we're walking out and seeing somebody and being polite to them or whatever, I don't know what you're referring to, but trust me, there's not a lot of joy and happiness when we're travelling back after an away game. And we've lost, by the way. If we won, there's a lot of joy and happiness. But.
Final one, and it's from Runar. Is Stoke heading for the Premier League? Is that the goal? And is that what is? And what time parameters on that? How quickly are we hoping to be back there if that is the aim? Manager, do you want to take that, Gaffer?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I wouldn't have taken the job if I didn't believe that the club had that ambition. I wouldn't have taken the job if I didn't believe that John and his family had that ambition as well, and Tony had that ambition. Obviously, the club spent 10 years in the Premier League, and with relegation comes a lot of complications. I think obviously where we find ourselves now is testament to that. But the main thing is, I think the key is not to be, we need to be up next year. Of course, you want to be back sooner rather than later. But the key is that there's a stability about the club, and then the club's in a strong position then to challenge. And I think we're well on the way to providing that stability from a playing point of view. John and Tony are obviously dealing with the other matters in terms of the financials and how that work. But I think, any of the conversations I've had with John and Tony since the moment I walked through the door and prior to walking through the door were about how we get the club, first of all, as I say, stabilising the Championship and then pushing to the Premier League, because I know that John personally has, I don't envisage that he wants to be 20 years here coming watching Championship football. So I think, everyone has the same focus, which is to deliver Premier League football again.
Thank you very much. Right, I've got a couple of microphones. If we've got any hands that want to go in the air, what I'll do then, right, okay, so we're going to do 5 or 10 minutes on this, so we're going to try and get through as many of your questions as possible, but we will have to put a stop on it at some point if the questions keep coming. So go to that gentleman in the glasses there first, then we'll come to you here after, Steve. Okay, so, yeah, one of those gentlemen there, yeah.
Question for Tony, actually. Do you ever see a time in the future where players like Berahino, when they misbehave, will have to repay some of the transfer fee?
Sadly, no. No, I think players, when they sign for you, have an awful lot of rights, and the PFA will defend them to the hilt, even when they do things which in normal occupations, as an employee, you'd be able to deal with them. In football, it's far more difficult. And sometimes we're dealing with matters that we can't make public, and we don't make public because we won't get to the result that we want to get to. But no, certainly from my perspective, I do wish there was a bit more power in the club's hands at time.
Thank you. Coming to you, Steve, there. Yeah.
Sort of a similar question to Tony and John. How difficult is it when you've got a player, and Man United got it with Pogba and we had it with Mbula, how difficult is it when you've got a player on the books that's on a lot of money, but they're not really interested and you can't do a lot with them?
It's incredibly difficult, but the first assessment really is whether or not that player's of value to Michael and the squad, and Michael now has to make that judgment, regardless of what they're paid or what we paid for them. It's are they of value to the squad, and if it's there's different levels of not ideal behaviour, if you like. Some of it might just be not quite the motivation level. Some of it might be just pure disruption, and when they're pure disruption, you've got to move them on, and that can be very expensive. But you've made the mistake previously. You've then just got to deal with it.
5-year contracts, though, too. 5-year contracts.
Well, the 5-year contract that's the judgment made at the time based upon the whole recruitment decision at the time. If you're taking Bula as an example, if you're paying the money we paid, and we paid a lot of money for him, you don't sign him on a 1 or 2 year contract because that money can walk away after 2 years.
I'm taking Berahino as an example. His record at West Brom the last 12 months, 18 months was horrendous. And we paid 12 million and give him a 5-year contract. He's nowhere near match fit. I don't get that.
Well, all I can say, when we gave him that 4.5 year contract in January, we had paid 12 million. So in terms of the length of the contract, you've got to protect that investment. Your problem, your issue, and it's a valid issue, is why we signed him in the first place on that money. You know, with hindsight, arguably some would say you should have known it at the time, but certainly with hindsight, we got it wrong.
Would that come down to you, Tony, or Mark? Because Mark Hughes seemed to go help for leather for Berahino. Was that more Mark Hughes's? He wanted him rather than the board.
Well, as Michael said in a previous answer, it's not fair of any of us sat here now to start laying blame on people, especially those who aren't here. John's already talked about the recruitment process, and there's never in the recruitment process only one person involved, and nor should there be, as Michael said. But we always sign the players that the manager wants, but that's not saying the manager carries all of the blame or indeed all of the credit when it goes right, because during Mark's time, you also have to look at some of the signings that were made under Mark, and they went extremely well. So, but we sit here together, we make decisions together, we take responsibility together as well.
But to me, Tony, you sitting there, you get a lot of flack. You do, rightfully or wrongfully, where Mark Hughes did play we had some good years, but a lot of that was from Tony's defensive setup. But to be fair, was a lot of stick you get even today is really from some of them signings at that time, which I know it's collectively, but do you think then, if we put it another way, you back certain managers too much?
I do know what you mean, and it's as a club we have always backed the manager. I know people historically have sort of questioned that, and more latterly we've been criticised for doing what people were saying we weren't doing historically. But as a club, we have backed the manager. Given the those signings that went wrong, I understand why you make that point. But also, I will say that there was an awful lot of good signings as well that Mark was backed on.
There was. Okay, we're going to try and get through some more. Got one at the back of the room there, and then Steve, if you would come here after. Yeah, Melissa at the back with.
Yeah, so with relation to Orlando City and severing ties with them before, is there anything in the works to get another affiliate club associated with the club?
Not at this moment in time, no. All of our focus at this moment in time is on getting things as right as we possibly can here. And as John said, we think we've made the most important decision. We think we've done the right thing with Michael. The next most important thing is to get the recruitment side right, and all of the focus is there.
Okay, Julie, come here.
Just a quick one, back to the ladies. Is it possible for us to have the ladies' fixtures on the website from next season? We can find the under-23s and the under-18s, but the trouble with the ladies is, unless you're on Twitter or on Facebook, you don't know when they are.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll come on the front row here on the end then. You keep your hands in the air for us so we can spot that. Lovely.
This is a question for Michael. The demise of the club over the last 3 years has been alarming, and I think if there's one player in the club who's especially affected, it's Jack Butland. Is the appointment of a new goalkeeping coach, David Rouse, there with the intention to probably improve his performance and also the club's future goalkeepers? We have got some very confident young goalkeepers in the background, from what I understand.
Yeah, I think so. I can only, again, comment on the time that I've spent with Jack. He's not been flawless in the 22 games that we've had, but I think he's had 7 or 8 clean sheets possibly in that period. Like anything, when there's a change in coaching management rather and coaching staff, you have to evaluate the staff that are in the building. I felt that was one area that would benefit from being refreshed as much as anything else. It wasn't necessarily a reflection on who was in the job. David Rouse came very highly recommended. He'd worked obviously within Manchester City, within their club for a number of years as well, and had a very good reputation. So yeah, look, we obviously Jack's suffered from relegation and losing his place in the England squad. All of those things will affect him, I'm sure. But what I don't see is a player who's not trying to get back to that level. He works very hard, and as I say, he's still at an age where there's still a lot of room for improvement. I think David Rouse is also a goalkeeping coach, which he spent a lot of time identifying younger goalkeepers for Manchester City as well, which is we do, as you rightly say, Joe Bursick is a young goalkeeper who is showing a lot of potential out of Accrington at this moment in time. We brought Adam Davis to the club at the start of the season, who was League One Goalkeeper of the Year, I believe, last year. Adam Federici had been at the club. So I think as a whole, the goalkeeping position is strong. But equally, it's not something that we're not reviewing constantly. I think Jack is still getting back to his best from what he was, obviously, when the club was in the Premier League, and that's a process that he has to go through, and I think David Rouse will play a big part in helping him get there.
Thank you, Steve. We've got one there with Steve.
It's more one for Tony and John, this one, to be fair. I'm not going to ask specifically about recruitment, because obviously that's been covered to death quite a lot tonight. Tony mentioned earlier about a number of clubs in the league being sort of Premier League level, or of a Premier League standard. Can you honestly say, hand on heart, over the last few years, that decision-making around the fan interaction, the fan experience has been of a Premier League level? So I'm talking now, the thing that's been mentioned tonight about the coaches for tomorrow night not being considered, only bringing in the ability to pay on card in the stands this season, last season I think it was, the lack of consultation with the supporters council about the admin charges on tickets, ultimately filling the corner in 10 years too late, because apparently demand wasn't there to fill the stadium to a 30,000 capacity every week when we were in the Premier League. Can you honestly say that decision making has been of a Premier League level for the fan, from a fan's point of view?
I think the decision-making process has been. Whether or not the decisions made have been the ones that you particularly wanted us to make is another matter. And I'll perhaps pick up the last one in terms of the corner. The reality, I'm sorry to say, is that we would not have filled that corner. And the decision that we took on an annual basis, and I believe we reached the right decision on an annual basis, was that we would rather have a completely full stadium of 28,000 than a 30,000 seat stadium that could have 1,500 or maybe even 2,000 empty seats. And that was a decision that we took, and I think it was the right decision to take as well. On the other matters that you make, I mean, the coach for tomorrow night, I've dealt with it already. The judgment was made, and it wasn't made by me. It was made by one of my team, and it was made on the basis that they didn't believe there was appropriate demand. Now, we'll never know whether that was right or wrong, but it's very easy to pick individual things and say, well, you could have got that wrong. Generally speaking, the contactless payment by card, we have to judge when we should spend the amount of money. The capital investment for a project like that is very significant. So we weigh up that capital investment versus spending the money in other parts of the club as well. So we will not always have reached the decisions that you may have wanted, but the decision-making process has always been a rigorous one and a professional one.
Thanks, Tony. Right, we are going to be... I've got Melissa there with one, and then a gentleman here has had his hand up a while with the glasses on, and then just behind him there, that gentleman in the middle, and then one there. So they're going to be our final four. So if we come to Melissa first with the microphone there.
Michael, in November, I had the Samaritans on ringback. And I've been able to.
Can you give me the number?
Yeah, I've been able to delete that number from my phone now. I think you've brought passion to the club. I think I can speak for myself, and I think I can speak for the room. We were going down, and your man management, what I can see you doing in the background, your system you're playing on the park, the players know where they're playing. There's been 2 managers in my lifetime that I've identified with. As a working man, I've identified with Lou Macari and Tony Pulis in my time as a Stoke fan. And I think you have the potential to be the third. In a very short time, you've worked miracles. And we've changed our WhatsApp page name from Stoke City Havoc to Rock On 2020-21. I'm looking forward to next season, and you will keep us up.
Thank you. Right, thank you. Coming to Steve.
My question for the CEO, actually it's about matchday experience. And does he think that you may be taking people's lives in danger, and the fact you're allowing your gangways and exits to be locked at the end of the matches because you've not got insufficient stewards there to make sure that people sit on the seat or actually leave the stadium?
It's an issue, and it's a serious issue, and it's one that the club try very hard to deal with, but it's also one that supporters need to take some responsibility for as well. That it's very difficult if you're an individual steward and you're asking people to move and they're not moving, and then gradually the crowd gets bigger and that steward feels as they can't do their job. It's very difficult, and that's. Beg your pardon? And they handle them better than we handle them. Well, can you name any clubs, and we'll get our guys to look at that.
Loads of people come down, 5 minutes spent, and they gather in the concourse area. It's not like that in away games. No. I go every away game. It's not like that. In away games, unless you're losing 4-0 at Derby,
you stay to the end.
Sorry, man. Everyone stays in their seats to clap the team. Away home games, people get away quickly, especially winning 5-1. Saturday's a prime example. People are ready, leave at 10 minutes ago, the game's over and done.
Okay, right. Caroline, next.
Hi, mine's an easy one regarding the young players. Bearing in mind the fabulous players that are going to play tomorrow night, and particularly as one of them's only 16, what are we doing to make sure they have a contract to play in the under-23s next season or wherever else, should they move forward more quickly?
One of the, and again it's judgment, and I'm very mindful of the comment made a moment ago about the 4.5 years for Mbula and Berahino. But no, you look at the talent that you've got, and you try to give them a contract, and an appropriate length of contract as well, to protect the club's asset, to reward the individual as well, but also you do it as a balance. You don't want to commit too much to them, because things can go wrong, as we found out.
And you also need the young player to remain motivated as well, and you've got that balance as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. It's probably, I think, one of the most difficult parts of the game, because I think that how clubs operate with young players between the ages of 12 and 16 is incredible. In terms of, and your location here doesn't make that any easier. That there's a lot of huge clubs that are actively looking at players of that age group, and the club can just do everything possible to try and show the pathway to the player, and the player believes that. In all honesty, that's what we had to do with Tyrese. We could easily have lost Tyrese because of the system, and I've been in many meetings with Tony. The agents are very difficult to deal with in this situation. Player agents of younger players make that very difficult. So, John's right. We have to be careful that we don't create too comfortable environment for our young players, and we keep a motivated environment for the young players. But the most important thing is they see the opportunity to play, and that has to be the biggest motivation for them. But sometimes, at the end of the day, money talks, and you will lose some players. But as you touch on the players, and I know the players you're referring to, we certainly want to have those players not only going forward in the club on a full-time basis, but pushing, and they see a pathway to the first team quite quickly.
Thank you. Got one here and then one more after, so this one here.
You've heavily criticised the financial fair play regulations, but isn't part of the focus of that to prevent the club doing what it's done since it's been relegated, in spending significant amounts of money, perhaps out of lack of due diligence? And shouldn't the focus on be what Michael's done, which is to implement a coherent strategy, maximise the resources that he's got, and then you see the upturn in performance?
Just because it can be levelled that we haven't done recruitment as well as we should have done doesn't necessarily therefore mean the rules are correct.
But no, your investment in the club's commendable, and no one can criticise that. But perhaps the strategy in which the money's been spent can be scrutinised. And is that what the rules are there to prevent the Leeds happening, the Cardiffs, and potentially if it wasn't for the Bet365 group, what could happen to Stoke if money was spent so haphazardly?
If I look at the recent demises of clubs, and I'll point to Bolton and Bury, I believe both of them would have passed the profit and sustainability rules with absolute flying colours. So it isn't doing what it purports to want to do. So I'm not saying there shouldn't be any rules in place. I'm just saying these are the wrong rules.
I think Tony said earlier that you were disappointed that you couldn't spend the amount that you wanted to in supporting the club. I think significant amounts have been spent. In fact, more money was spent on transfer fees after relegation than the final season in the Premier League, but that's not delivered results. Whereas Michael's focus on creating a plan with the resources that are at the club has delivered results.
We believe with the correct set of rules, we can give Michael the support he needs to do the job to the best of his ability.
Thanks, John. Last question with Steve there.
This is for Michael. I'd just like to thank you on behalf of the supporters for lifting the mood in the club in the time you've been here. And secondly, when you're watching the Championship and you're watching players from other teams, if anybody stands out, shall we say like SA at QPR or that Lopez on Saturday, do you carry on looking at him for the future? And also, when are we going to win in London again?
Yeah, I think you always look at players in the league. There's a number of players that we've identified within clubs within the league. Again, we have to be mindful that we're not held to ransom on that in terms of the valuation that clubs put on them. And as you rightly say, Ezzie's a player of immense talent. I think with that will probably come quite a hefty fee, which we're probably not in a position to pay at this moment in time. But it is very important that it's the right profile of player. We tend to look at predominantly, if we're going to invest money, for example, in players probably in the 22 to 25 age group. I think that we possibly didn't have enough players of that age group in the squad as well, because I think it feeds sometimes it's important that you have the right profile of player to help the training as well, because the older players then are stimulated and motivated by the younger players coming in with something to prove as well. And that was part of the reason for getting some of the players out that we got out, because they were dragging the training down as opposed to helping it. And so we look at all those young players. We're actively looking at players with potential in League One as well, and equally those young players that are on the periphery of Premier League squads as well. But the players you mentioned, there's a number of good young players in the league, and Joe Rothwell at Blackburn's another good young player. We looked at and I think teams, it depends. I think some teams in the Championship have been built by giving players opportunity. I think Preston are a team like that. They've taken players who have maybe not been successful at their first club, or they've maybe stepped them up from League One, and then them giving them an opportunity to build their careers. Now, whether that's enough to build a team to get you to the Premier League is another factor, but I think that is, you know, a big part of what we would like to do would be to do that, as well as to build assets within the club and add them to, you know, a lot of the players, the good players that we've had, that we've paid money for. And then when you spend your money, obviously, you spend it in the right places.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I think a round of applause for our panel this evening. Before you go anywhere, Steve just wants you to each pick one ticket out of the hat for us. We've got 3 raffle prizes. We've got signed shirt, signed ball, 2 tickets. Which one's this, Steve? Tickets? Shirts. Orange ticket, 256 to 260. 256 to 260 on the orange ticket. Ball is on a white ticket, and the numbers are 456 to 460. So 456 to 460 on the white ticket. And final one for the tickets is on a blue ticket, and it's 326 through to 330. 326 through to 330. If you are in possession of one of those winning raffle tickets, please come and see Melissa and Steve at the end here. We'll distribute you some prizes. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here this evening. Big round of applause for Mr. John Coates, Michael O'Neill and Tony Scholes here at the Bet365 Stadium. And we'll see you soon. Thank you.